All right, guys, welcome on in. Welcome on in. I'm very excited. We have a very special delight. A lot of you are out tweeting and Instagramming about a Twitter user, Inner City Press. He's been very, very well credited, and he is actually in New York right now. He's covering the Jen Shah trial, or sorry, not the Jen Shah trial, the Jen Shah prison sentencing. Hello, Matthew. How are you?
Coming down from a couple of hours of typing, and then we just ran out in front of the courthouse to see if Jen Shah had anything to say about the 78-month sentence. She did not.
Yes.
She got into a big black Escalade and drove away, but here I am, back in the courthouse.
So now she has been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. That's followed by 5 years probation, and then she has to pay an additional
supervised release. I was
supervised
just
release.
Answering somebody about that, where it's actually it can cause you a lot of trouble. I see a lot of violations of supervised release cases coming back in. Basically, they set conditions, got to check in with probation. But if you violate it, like if they found her doing it again, they will bring her back in, and if Judge Stein is still on the bench, then she'll be in front of him, and he would then drop the hammer. So it's not. Some people seem to misunderstand it. Somebody tweeted at me that they thought that this meant it was 1.5 years and then out of jail. It's 6.5 years. Although you can get about 10% off for good time, whatever that means, if she doesn't have any violations, but it's not like the state system where you could get like half off.
Right.
It's a good 6 years. Whether it'll be in a minimum security facility, I don't know. Her lawyer was pushing for that.
Yeah, they were pushing for the Bryan, Texas facility that Elizabeth Holmes is at. I mean, from what I understand, the judge did allow her to serve time in Texas. He just didn't specify that she can go to the Bryan.
Recommend it's this whole it's a kind of a separation of powers issue. Like the judicial branch doesn't run the prisons; it's the executive branch. So he just said he won't recommend a particular facility, but he'll recommend the region that Texas is in. I'm sure that Priya Chowdhury, the lawyer, will push. I didn't know it. So you can have two fraudsters for a long time getting their stuff together. Fake blood machines.
Right.
And the elderly, what could go wrong?
I loved so we were able to get the judge's kind of like sass and sarcasm based off of the tweets that you were putting out. But I mean, were you cracking up in the court listening to some of his clapbacks?
Absolutely. When he would cut in, I'm sorry if I just cut you off, but he would cut the lawyer. He would cut particularly Jen Shah's lawyer off and say, "Wait a second," because she would say something. She didn't when she spoke. He let her spoke, and I think that's kind of the custom. It's like a defendant can say whatever they want. I think I missed somebody quoted Gandhi, and I wasn't able to quote fast enough. I thought there were a lot of clunkers in both her lawyers and in her statement that she's volunteering for racial justice and she's turned her life around. I mean, I think it was really graphic. The prosecutor's presentation didn't begin to really convey how sleazy this scheme was. It wasn't it really seems to me, having looked at the case pretty closely, it wasn't like, they were selling something. I think it was even different in Elizabeth Holmes. I think in Elizabeth Holmes' case, you could say she had a noble ideal of this machine. She should have known that it didn't work. She started lying that it did work, but she was trying to fake it until you make it. Priya Chowdhury tried to say that Jen Shah was faking it until she made it in terms of this telemarketing, but there was never anything behind it. They weren't selling anything. There wasn't even a claim.
Yeah, she was never making it. There was nothing to make.
People rich in their retirement. It was just to drain their accounts because why not?
One of my favorite parts is when her team was basically saying that it was the victim statements that really hit her hard and not the evidence, not the 300-page packet of evidence against her. But I'm just like, but in the 300-page packet evidence that the U.S. provided against her, they have text messages where she's acknowledging to her team that these elderly people are asking for their money back because they feel like they've been, the victim of a fraud scheme. And there's text messages and she's like, is this lady done crying yet? Can we move forward? Reyes, have you lost your touch with the ladies?
Do you make her love you? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's this issue of chargebacks has come up. I covered a case here about somebody that jumped the gun and tried to run an online marijuana delivery service before it was legal in any state. And they had the same problem with chargebacks. Like a bank, it seems like if you're using a bank to do a fraud, they have some they have some kind of a red flag system where if you get a certain percentage of chargebacks, they look into you more closely. So they're always trying to con people out of bill charge. They might even like refund the money outside of them trying to get it back from the credit card company, because if you hit certain targets of chargebacks, you go on a red flag list. So that was that. So exactly. The idea that she didn't know what was being done was described not only by the prosecutor, but also by Judge Stein as ludicrous. Like, it didn't make any sense. It's a nice story to say, like,
right.
She had no idea. And as soon as she saw the victim's statement, she pled guilty. But she was the one that was for 10 years saying, let's do it, like,
let's do it, and let's tweak it to keep it going. Because every time the FTC would crack down on her, there was always another tweak. Let's move the accounts over to Kosovo. Let's open up a bank account in my aunt's name. So for those of you that are just tuning in right now, we are live with Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press. He's a lot of the memes that are going around and a lot of the quotes that are going around from Live in the Courthouse. That was from Matthew. He's live on the phone with us right now. In response to Jen Shah's prison sentencing, she will be serving 6.5 years in federal prison, 5 years supervised release.
Yeah.
And then
February 17th.
Starting February 17th.
People who were tweeting me and asking, they didn't. It could have been done, but no one really expected. I have seen cases where at sentencing, the marshals are there to take you into custody, but that didn't happen. And I think it probably shouldn't have been expected. One issue that we haven't discussed, and maybe I literally, like, I guess I'll put it this way: about 2 weeks before sentencing, I saw her sentencing submission, and I was pretty outraged because you always have some redactions where they black out the name of a minor child or somebody's home address, but she blacked out like half of her own statement. It wasn't anyone else's information. It wasn't addresses. It wasn't even health information. It's like she was trying to make. I really can't wait to see it. And I think on Monday, which is a shame because people won't. I'm going to continue on it, but I don't know if people will be as into it. But the judge, I ended up doing 2 filings to the court. He addressed it early in the proceeding and said, these cannot be withdrawn. They must be released with certain exceptions. Now they have to, because of the way she set it up, so it was only decided on the day of sentencing, there's going to be a delay as they go back to it and only take out the home addresses and names of minor children. But I believe if they were trying to redact that, it's going to be even more embarrassing than what was said in court today, which was pretty embarrassing when she was talking. I wish I knew how to spell some of the Hawaiian words. She was totally playing this card that she comes from a culture that respects elders. And that maybe, I'm sure that's true of the culture.
Right.
The idea
just
that
not of her.
Somehow, she should get a lesser sentence,
right?
Because she's using, these Polynesian. It's just ridiculous. I do admit that there were some I couldn't believe some of the statements made, but that's showbiz, as they say.
Right. And so give us an update. So in the brief that she submitted, which was the 55 pages, which we broke down here on this show, there were a lot of pieces that were redacted, like literally pages and paragraphs that were just completely blacked out. So you're fighting.
I couldn't believe it. It said something like, and then something, it's like, I've never seen that. I want to say that I would not have filed, there's a lot of cases going on here. I would not have taken the time to file to the court if it was even a close call, but they went totally overboard, and it's just, and then the judge ordered them to respond. And instead of, I expected them to then, unredact some, keep some, we disagree, and it would be done. Instead, they doubled down and said, it's so sensitive that if you order it released, we're going to withdraw it. So then my response was you can't withdraw it. You've already submitted it.
Right.
You already asked the judge to read it. The judge has already read it. So you can't unring that bell. Basically, the whole purpose of these court transparency, case law and statutes are so that the people can understand why a judge reaches the decision that they do, right? There's no Freedom of Information Act about Jen Shah. She's not the government. But once you tell a judge, give me 3 years instead of 10, for this reason, we have a right to know the reason. Because even if you withdraw it, if the judge gives you 6.5, we want to know what you said,
No, I agree. And so that's what you're fighting right now. And hopefully we'll have an update on that by next week. But you're fighting to have those redactions removed so that we can see what was actually filed. I mean, and it just kind of seems a little silly. Why so much?
I'm going to go kind of beyond the role of Real Housewives. The same fight is arising here in the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX crypto thing, where he's trying to keep the identities of people that are signing to get him kept out on bond secret. So it's not limited to this case or any other case. It's like a general principle that what happens in court is public. You can't privatize the court.
Right. I mean, what a day. I know it's been an eventful day for you, so I don't want to keep you too long, but what would you say?
I'm actually get to, that's the funny thing. Like you did, now I've got to like turn those tweets into a story, but I've seen that other people have already used them for that, but I'm going to do kind of an analysis piece, put some on Patreon, some on the website, and then I'll be done with it. And I can go back to like, the sad thing here is that, I mean, not sad, they're real crimes, but I've seen people not really violent, but if they're involved in selling crack and somebody in the gang has a gun, they're going to get 10 years. 10 years. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing that they did, but they hurt fewer people. And if they didn't use the gun, I believe, than Jen Shah did. And it's sort of, something's out of whack with like, that's a mandatory minimum. Here, there was a guideline, but even the judge said, and I think I respect Judge Stein. He's right that there's a lot of cases saying that the guidelines for fraud are too high. So the guideline was like 135 to 160. The government wanted 120. She got, 78, 6.5 years. But I still, maybe the problem is people, look, I believe if you use violence against somebody, you should get a long sentence.
Right.
But if you didn't, and it's really a matter of kind of like conspiracy law, somebody in your gang had a gun, I don't think you should get 10 years automatically. It doesn't seem that fair to me, but that's just me.
I agree. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Sure.
What a wild day. I can't, but
we'll see what happens next. With Jen Shah, you never know if things are going to go
seriously.
smoothly,
you never know.
She can't really appeal, because the sentence is lower than her guideline.
Yeah.
So I don't anticipate any appeal, but you never know if she's going to violate. I think the judge is pretty pissed at her, and I think if she makes any move like free Jen Shah and selling coffee cups or T-shirts or whatever, she's going to be back here. So
yeah,
keep your lines open.
I definitely will. All right, I'll keep an eye out for your briefing, and I'll make sure we share it here on the show too once it's out.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Glad to speak with you.
Thanks. Bye. That was Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press. A lot of the Bravo accounts that you're seeing share some of the quotes from Live in the Courthouse. That was Matthew. He was tweeting live, and he is here he was here to break it all down. So to catch everybody up, Jen Shah has been sentenced to 6.5 years in federal prison. She will likely be serving at the Bryan, Texas facility. It's a minimum security prison facility. That's where Elizabeth Holmes is serving her time. Jen Shah was not taken into custody, as Matthew revealed at the top of this live. She walked out, did not talk to any press, got into a black SUV and headed on out. She does not have to turn herself in until February 17th. So she has just a little over a month to kind of get her affairs in order and make sure she's ready for the big house. She also has to pay. So as we know, there was 6.6 seized or 6.5 seized in assets that the feds took that they are trying to liquidate to pay some of that restitution. In addition to that, she will have to pay 6.6 million in cash to pay back some of her victims and to pay the restitution that is now owed. So she has a $6.6 million tab that is still owed on top of her 6.5 years in prison, on top of 5 years supervised release. So hefty. I'm actually going to text Emily D. Baker and see if she has a sec. Do you have a sec to call into our live to phone into our live stream? Just got off with Inner City Press. Would love your brief live reaction. Boom. Just text Emily. Hopefully she'll be able to call in. I should have texted her before. It's been a busy day, guys. I've been slammed with updating on Twitter, updating on Instagram. I just taped the Morally Corrupt podcast with the Ringer Reality TV podcast. We taped that, so that should be dropping very shortly. So you can go on Spotify and listen to the Ringer Reality TV podcast. A new episode of Morally Corrupt is out today. We break it all down. What is your reaction? Do you think Jen Shah, obviously, we know that she was originally charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The money laundering charge did seem pretty legit considering all of the shell companies that she had open and how she was moving a lot of the money around, even moving money over to Kosovo. That charge was ultimately dropped when she took her plea agreement. That together she was facing a maximum of 50 years in prison. She took a plea deal in July of 2022 right ahead of her trial. She said, "Nah, Judge JK, I'm guilty, and I want to take a plea deal." So they brought her sentencing down to a maximum of 14 years for conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And she admitted to being the ringleader of this entire business opportunity scheme, which is how it's being described by the government. So she now had her sentencing date, which was today. It was a couple of hours long. We are reacting live. Again, I am hoping to get Emily D. Baker on the phone. She might not. She's probably swamped just like I am. But at least we got to chat with Matthew and have, have a little bit of fun with that. But so when she submitted her briefing, she said, "I'm great. I'm amazing. I'm a pillar of the community. I help all the homeless and the toothless, and I should not serve this time, Judge. I should only serve 3 years because other people were worse." And the government was like, "No, other people were not worse. You're number one in this entire scheme." There are about 30 people that have been arrested. Some of them have been, some of them, I believe, are going to trial to fight it, and some of them have already been sentenced to prison. Emily D. Baker, where you're streaming, I can call or jump in StreamYard for a few. Oh, maybe we can get Emily on StreamYard. Let's see. I'm going to invite. All right, guys. Looks like we might get Emily D. Baker live on the live stream. This is awesome. Okay. Just emailed you the stream link. Yay. Okay, so it looks like Emily D. Baker will be calling in live and at boom. Okay. Well then okay. So Emily D. Baker is going to be calling in. I listened to Emily all night. Yay. Okay, so she's going to be calling in momentarily, and we'll have Emily chat with us. But yeah, so government wanted to give Jen 10 years, which is below the 14-year number. She wanted 3 years. Ultimately, she got 6.5 years. It is crazy. I mean, if you look at how she showed up, she rolled up looking glammed out, you guys. Like she was just like not going to come in modestly at all. She was channeling her inner Teresa Giudice, rocking all her leopard print. Let's see. We have a photo of her from NBC. Here's Jen Shah. She had her leopard print clutch. She has her leopard print scarf on. She also had some leopard print pumps that she was rocking. This does kind of look like it might be a knockoff YSL handbag. Interesting. I mean, we know that she's the queen of knockoffs, but she was also spotted yesterday. We spotted her at the Salt Lake City International Airport. Let's pull up that photo of Jen at the airport. And she was basically also keeping the glam going. Like there is no shame in her game. And a lot of people are like, "Yes, mother is serving." And they were like, "Oh, Jen Shah, she looks so good and she looks so hot." And I was like, I don't know if this is how I would be showing up to the airport. So we can see Jen Shah here. She has her hair done, full blowout, sleek black look. She was rocking a Chanel bag. Unclear whether the bag was real or not real. It doesn't matter how many Chanel bags you borrow. You will never be a lady, as the morally corrupt Faye Resnick once said. And then she has her boots. And if you look at these boots carefully, they're cheetah print boots, long cheetah print boots, which again, just an interesting choice to wear to the airport to go to New York for your prison sentencing. They're the same boots she was wearing when she was arrested back in March 2021. So, interesting decision to wear the same. Maybe they were her lucky boots. She did not wear them to court today. She wore some TJ Maxx cheetah print heels. Not the boots, which was a bit of a bummer because I would have loved to have put a montage together of like Jen heading to the airport in the boots, Jen heading from her arrest in the boots, Jen getting ready for prison in her boots. But who knows? Maybe she'll wear her lucky boots when she has to turn herself in on February 17th. The judge was very funny, though. He was clapping back and he was not taking any of the BS that Jen's attorneys were trying to spew. He was very clear that he doesn't want her to profit off of it. He said, "I'm concerned, Miss Shaw. You said that your manager is here. If you intend to profit from this procedure, there should be no intention to profit from this crime," which basically said, "Don't write a book, don't do a documentary. I don't want to do this." Is there anywhere to see the live trial? No, it wasn't a trial. It was a sentencing hearing. It was not broadcast anywhere. So, no, there is no way to actually see it. In response to claims from Jen's attorney that not all of her business was bad, but some of it was actually kind of good, the judge said, these are just some of my favorite quotes from the judge. He said, what good things were telemarketers doing, calling elderly people, taking advantage of their lack of computer skills, selling business opportunities, and maxing out their credit cards? I mean, my God, the judge with the sass today. Here to bring some additional sass, we have the one and only Emily D. Baker live in the stream today. Em, how are you? What is
I'm
your
good, friend.
reaction?
How are you? Uh-oh. I'm gonna echo. Let me make sure I'm not echoing.
You're not echoing, not on
Okay,
my
cool.
end.
How are you?
I'm great. You're making me put on my headphones now. How
I'm
are you?
sorry.
What is your reaction to this wild sentencing day?
I mean, it definitely seems there's a weird vibe with today. There's like some people who are sad. There's, Heather Gay just being like, we're still ride or die. And then there's people who are just like celebrating. At the end of the day, 6.5 years in federal prison is a long time for someone who's never been in custody. She's going to miss a lot of milestones with her kids, and it's consistent with what other defendants have gotten in this case. Federal judges tend to sentence nonviolent crimes lower than what you see with violent crimes. So it's not a shock to me that we're in that 6 to 8 years range. I was thinking possibly closer to 8, but she agreed to the highest restitution of all of the defendants. They've had a substantial forfeiture, so it makes sense. Like I understand how we got here, but the judge was not having any patience. I thought the judge kind of let loose a little bit more than I anticipated, and that was interesting to me.
I looked into the judge a little bit before, and
Mm.
he seemed to be a little lighter on white collar crimes and different fraud
This
cases that
is
he's seen
typical
before.
across the federal bench. This is very typical across the federal bench.
Yes. And so I actually enjoyed, I was reading some of the reviews of him online from other attorneys that have gone before him, and they said that, he's very pompous, he doesn't take any BS, but he really was not taking any BS. He's like, "Why is your manager here in court right now?" He's like, "What is like
Is the merch off the website? Let's get to the facts. Is the merch off the website? Like, he was offended. He read the government's receipts. He was talking about her text messages.
Yes. Okay, so one of the big questions that people are asking is, can she get out early? So my understanding is a federal sentence, you have to serve a minimum of 85%, but I do know there are certain things, like if she has a substance abuse issue and she, seeks counseling for that they can knock some time off. Do you think she'll end up serving the full 6.5 years?
She won't end up serving the full 6.5 years. She will end up serving a substantial portion of it. But everything that you said is accurate, Zach. It's generally around 85%, which, in California, if you got sentenced to 6.5 years, you might serve like 7 months. So, state system lets people out for overcrowding. It has a different calculation of how much time you get for like, it's like interest on time you serve. Like, you give a day, you get two back or whatever. It's a whole different calculation. The federal system tends to keep people in for a much larger portion of their sentence, which is another reason why you see sentences that seem lower in years, but higher in actual time served. So there is that. But yes, there are programs that she can participate in that she might choose to do that will allow her to be out a little bit earlier. Either way, I imagine for her, once we get past the 3 year mark, because there's nothing that's going to knock this in half. Once you get into 3 and 4 years, I imagine that that's going to still feel like a substantial amount of time to her. That's 3 and 4 years without a skincare routine, without being able to really hug your kids the way you're used to,
Yeah.
without going to family events and milestones. And we saw how much that impacted Teresa, and she served substantially less time. So I know there's a feeling of frustration that like this could have been more time. She did so much damage. Yes, it could, but it also the system is meant to not just protect the community. Like, is she ever going to do this again? No, everybody knows who she is. That's doesn't seem possible that she would continue to commit more crime. And then to rehabilitate and to punish. It's not just for retribution. So that is what the judge has to balance. And this is not the worst thing this judge has ever seen. It's not going to be on the scale of crimes this judge sentences. And this judge has seen all of these cases. So this judge has sentenced all of these co-defendants. What I'm most interested for is what Stuart Smith is going to get.
Yes.
Right?
And he doesn't have a sentencing date yet,
No.
correct?
No, I still think he's having a chitty chat with the AUSAs. I don't think Stuart is done with his cooperation with law enforcement, and that is my speculation based on the fact that we had that extra defendant pop up. So
What did you think of the government at the last minute adding in the police report and the restraining order against Jen with this woman that is the wife of a man that she was claiming was sleeping with or had some sort of entanglement with Jen Shah?
look, we know from the internet that lawyers can be petty, right? Like let's not mince words. Lawyers can be petty. I wonder if this is an outcropping of their annoyance with this season. This is my speculation, but
Mhm.
also Jen painted this portrait like the beginning of her biography in her sentencing memorandum of a pampered princess in Hawaii who was ripped out of the loving arms of her family and thrown into the snow naked in Utah where they scorned her. So it doesn't surprise me that the government's like, oh, she's a devoted wife and mother. Well, actually, this is what we've received. They interviewed this individual, they provided the letter that this person sent them unsolicited. If you don't think that if you're getting sentenced to federal prison, that the people who don't like you will not call the attorneys and tell them immediately, I have received those calls. They will tell everything about your business to the prosecutors. They're like, you want to know what I know? Let me tell you what I know. And the prosecutors will diligently follow up on that and have it interviewed. And there was a police report and a temporary restraining order to back it up. That said, temporary restraining orders are not difficult to get. It's the person going in and saying this stuff happened and the court going, okay. And then you have to follow it up with a more thorough hearing or not. So it backs up the person's story and they were interviewed and the judge has a right to consider that. I don't think the judge did. I think the judge considered the text messages and Jen's own words and used those against her more. But
Those were bad.
it was a little sassy. It was a little sassy, and I think the government maybe wasn't thrilled with Jen's professing her innocence in an entire season. So when people ask me, can what she say on Housewives come back to bite her in the ass? Is the judge going to sentence her higher because of Housewives? No. We saw the judge say, I'm not taking this into consideration.
Yeah.
But does it put the prosecution in the category of annoyance? Absolutely. And now this allegation is out there. Her attorneys say that this is absolutely untrue. The woman is suffering from PTSD and has retracted the story. But it's still out there now. More information about Jen Shah is out there, and more is coming out because they're gonna get rid of a lot of those redactions in that sentencing memo.
I know. We were just chatting with Matthew from Inner City Press, and he's like, I was hoping to get an answer today, but he said there'll likely be an update on that next week. Because how common is it to have pages and paragraphs just completely
Not.
blacked out?
It's not. And I understand redacting out her minor son's name, but also it's not as if that information's not out there because of the TV show, you know?
On
It's just
TV, yeah.
I get it. Redacting out addresses and birth dates, I get it. That makes sense. But redacting out these large swaths of life events and then for Jen's attorney to say, "Look, if you're going to unseal this, we're withdrawing Jen's own statement."
Come
I
on.
don't know if the court's gonna allow that. And
No, because it's already been filed and it's already been presented to the judge.
yep, and considered. So it's an interesting thing. I think Matthew from Inner City Press has done incredible work. I don't know if he sleeps ever, but he has done incredible work. He's asking for unsealing in the bankruptcies with regard to FTX. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if he's a team of 1 or 50. I can't tell the difference because he is doing so much work.
I think he's a team of one, and he's killing it. The fact that he's
Acting like a team of 50.
yeah, acting like a team of 50. Thank you, for calling in and breaking this all down for us.
course.
People are asking about the IRS and what is going to happen with that? Are they going to come down on Jen?
Because your audience is so smart because you informed them really well.
That's why I have my Harvard sweater on
I
today.
love it. You're like, we're here. Legally curious.
Yes.
Here's the thing. The feds made it very clear that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of unreported income. The Fed said she did not report it. So yes, the IRS will come knocking. Whether that will be a criminal enforcement action where they will charge her with tax evasion or whether they will just go after the money, Jen's money is not going to be her own for a very, very long time because that debt isn't going anywhere and can't go anywhere. Look, if you trust in anything, is that the IRS will get their cash. Like, hey, you better have my money. That's the IRS's whole
Bitch
motto.
better have my money.
Hey,
What?
baby, you got my money. That's the IRS's theme song. They're gonna come find your money, and they just added like 87,000 new enforcement officers, probably because the federal government is like, we need some cash. Where can we get it from? The IRS will go find it for us. So this is easy pickings for them. And have we talked about this? I worked in the AUSA's tax fraud office when I was in law school. So because I'm a
Ah,
nerd. So when I was doing my summer work, I worked in the tax division and worked with the IRS enforcement agents. Most of their enforcement actions come from tips from other government agencies, tips from exes, ex-business partners, ex-lovers, ex-spouses. People will call the IRS on you so fucking fast.
wow.
But they don't everybody's like, "Oh, they're gonna catch an anomaly in my taxes." That's not generally how it works. It is a lot of tips, and they go after a lot of money. So when it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're absolutely going to do something. Whether it's another crime, maybe not, but they will go after the money. So yeah, the IRS will knock. The IRS is gonna knock for the Girardis as well, because it's
Yeah.
very clear that Tom Girardi was doing some creative things with the taxes, and perhaps the CFO was helping with those creative things on the taxes.
Creative things is like Heather Gay describing Jen Shah's business as unsavory.
Oh my god, business, but it feels like Heather Gay was like, "Well, it's like Unikitty being like business, 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 business. Is it working?" And the whole thing with the black eye, Zach, I can't. We could talk about this
Wait, do you
forever.
know what happened to the black eye?
No, but
She hid it on a faucet in her bathroom. She literally hid it, or that's kind of the
what's she
story
saying now?
well, no, that's what she apparently she said it on camera. Um, Apparently she said it on camera and it was edited out of the show, so I'm assuming we're
That
likely gonna
is
get the
so
story at the reunion.
rude. You can't edit it out of the show, and she's like, "Oh, I've got scratches, and I've got
If
scratches,"
you
and
pay attention to the episode, she has the scratches earlier in the night. Go rewatch the
I
episode, the
will.
scratches are there when she's taking her tits out and laying on the
Oh, well, if you're drunk and doing all this with your
yeah.
fake nails, I can see it. But to I don't know, whenever we're, like, playing up assault for a storyline, it doesn't sit well with me, especially when we're implying, "Did Jen punch her in the eye?" Because we can see that happening. Did they headbutt each other while they were naked wrestling, or did she get assaulted by Whitney? And then for Bravo production to come in with the, like, rattling handle, y'all know what you did, Bravo.
Well, because they knew there wasn't enough content. No one was talking about Jen Shah's trial until Dana Banana comes in and comes swinging.
Mm, that's true. That's true. It's just I don't know. It was difficult for me, but I'm not surprised. I mean, she clearly hit her eye with something. I mean, everybody who watched the Amber Heard trial is like, "See, that's what a black eye looks like."
Not something you can hide when you go on, what was it, Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah,
Or,
no, James
James
Corden.
Corden, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
the swelling doesn't just go away. I mean, your face swells quite anyway, I could talk about this forever. Zach, it's so good to see you. Do we
Thank
have any
you.
other questions? I don't wanna keep you forever.
I think there was just one other question that came up that I had, and that's what was the difference between because when they listed out all the co-defendants, they had tier A and then they had tiers 1 through 4. What's the difference between tier A and tier 1, and why do you think Jen was listed as the very tippity top?
The tip of the spear. So tier 1 through 4 was listed in the previous prosecutions. This is the third round of defendants. So the Ketabachi cases were going on before these and wrapped up before these cases started. So when these cases came to fruition, the government said, and they said this early on in that arraignment hearing where the government said, these are the most culpable defendants of all of this. It's like the government was working their way up the food chain in how this um, fraud scheme was working. So when they already had people in tier one, they needed to designate people that were more responsible for this and more involved in this than tier one. So they put the responsibility and culpability of these defendants above tier one. So in tier one, we see Ketabachi, who's the named defendant in the last prosecution, getting 87 months. And then we see these higher tier defendants paying more in restitution, but then getting 78 months. And that's part of the balance that the court does. And I did a lot of white collar crimes and financial crimes. No amount of custody time for Jen Shah fixes the damage that was done, and it never will. Restitution money is never going to be enough to go around to fix the damaged credit scores, the paying back potentially thousands of dollars of interest on maxed out credit cards. It doesn't undo that damage. And I don't know if it will make the victims feel any better. It normally feels a little hollow. It's like, okay, so she's taken out of her life. She's not there with her kids. What good does this just do anybody? And I saw a great question in the chat from Aaron D saying, do you think Jen Shah will appeal? Jen Shah can only appeal the sentence. This sentence is fair. They set the sentencing range up to 14 years. This is really right in the middle there. So a little lower than the middle. So there's not much to appeal. And I think it would be a waste of her money. She has so much money owed in restitution, and the IRS is going to come for it. I think it would be futile. She can't appeal her guilty plea, only the sentence.
Right. And she
I wanna
has
make sure that was clear.
6.6 million owed in restitution.
Mhm.
And I like how they outed that Coach Shaw makes 600,000 per year. They're like, so they have money. They can
Yep.
they
Yep.
can start
And
to
they're
put,
married. And they also, I mean, they outed all her handbags, didn't they? They're telling
I
all of
mean,
Jen Shah's secrets.
mess. Talk about mess.
I mean, it's mess, and there's nothing they can do with those handbags, but they're gonna go after all of her property. The thing is, Jen Shah, like so many defendants in large scale frauds, moved everything through in cash like it was a river. There's nothing tangible to take. The cars are leased, the home is leased, or at least there's nothing tangible to take that the government has found at this point. And when you see offshore accounts and allegations of money laundering, there's always a question as to where the rest of this goes. But also, Zach, I got a question for you. The
Yes.
fraud
Lay it on
scheme started in 2012.
me.
Coach
Mhm.
Shaw left Big Law in 2012. Is that a coincidence?
I mean, listen, I think Jen Shaw is full of coinkydinks. I don't think that any of the listen, when you follow the 2012 to 2021, it seemed like we were constantly, constantly trying to keep the fraud going. I actually have a question back to you. I think that the timing of that to respond to your question is very convenient. There was a text message that was from Jen Shaw to Stuart Smith in regards to his 2018 deposition that he had to give to the FTC,
Or the one
where
he
she
pled
says,
guilty to perjury for? That one?
yes,
Mhm.
yes, where he admitted to lying to the FTC.
Mhm.
So there was a text message where Jen says, if there's a question that we are uncertain of, we can ask Sharif. How incriminating is that for Sharif?
Um, Incriminating in the court of public opinion? Substantially. Incriminating in whether he will ever be charged in anything, whether this will impact a law license or anything? No, because he's not practicing law at this time. But in the court of public opinion, do I now want to know why everybody's like, well, we have more evidence that Coach Shaw knew what Jen was up to than we have that Erica Girardi knew what Tom Girardi was up to. That's not to excuse the behavior. I'm
Right.
just saying we have more evidence that Coach Shaw knew and it was at some point involved in advising his wife about the FTC. They lied to federal regulators and didn't stop. They just got sneakier. And that is really telling because if Jen Shaw was like, whoopsie doodle, I didn't realize this was not like actually fine business practices. When the FTC comes knocking and everyone gets arrested, you stop then. But no, they're just like, how can we run this for longer? Oh, let's run it offshore and run this forever. So she doubled right down and was like, Mama needs a brand new bag. Let's get it. Let's put on the headphone and take some money from some people.
I mean, at least make it a real bag. Thank you.
Maybe all the money went to the diamond encrusted headpiece she was using to sweet talk victims who
I
she
mean,
said she never talked to. Why
right.
do you need the headpiece then, Jen? I need a diamond encrusted microphone. Maybe we need to do it. We need to do it up a little bit.
I
It would
like
be Weinstein.
my bedazzled my coffee. What are the
Mhm.
coffee? What are
Tumblr.
the Law Nerd one that you sent
Yes.
me?
Yes.
What are the
Your
Tumblr?
Tumblr. Yeah. I've got
Tumblr. Yes. I
If
also
you
have
fill
my
this up
gavel.
though if you fill this up with Zach's wine, you won't survive. I'm just
Oh
telling
no,
you.
you won't
You can't
survive.
wine in this tumbler.
I have my gavel that I use all the time too. It's on my bar, but I always have the gavel that I'm using. My Emily D. Baker gavel. Yes.
We need
When
them.
we're
I'm making some new ones. I will make sure to send you one. It's such a pleasure, Zach. It's been way too long. We've been too
yes,
busy, but
I know.
I'm so excited
Thank
watching
you.
everything that you're covering, and I love that you're diving into like Harry and Meghan and all of it.
Oh, we're diving into all of it. All right. I know you're busy. I know you have probably live streams and podcasts ahead. So everyone go and give Emily a
My
follow.
day is ridiculous when I'm looking at my calendar with going, and you message me at the perfect time. It's like, do you have a moment? I'm like, literally, this is the only one I have until like later tonight. So I'm so glad it worked out.
I love it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, everyone. Good to see you.
Bye, 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 bye. Okay, guys, what questions do you have? Didn't Coach Shah sign the tax returns? Yes, he did. He's likely going to be culpable for those as well. For those of you that are just watching, we chatted with Emily D. Baker and we chatted with Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press. I also did hit up Bernie and I'm like, hey, do you have a minute to chat? Because like maybe he does. So we'll see if he calls in as well. I promised you guys I would have quite a show with some great guests coming on. We had Inner City Press's Matthew Russell Lee. He's the one that's been live tweeting from the courthouse. He was watching this all go down before Jen went in. After Jen came out, he said that she didn't say anything to the press. She hopped into her black SUV and went on her merry way. She has until February 17th to turn herself in to begin serving her 6.5-year prison sentence. It's unlikely that she'll end up serving the full amount of 6.5 years. Obviously, there are other stipulations or programs that she can take advantage of that can knock some time off. We will have to wait and see where this goes. Thank you, Storm, for the reminder. Everybody, please hit the like button if you've been enjoying this. There will be lots more to come. If you missed the live stream or you came in late at any point, the rebroadcast will be available on the podcast. So you can always go and subscribe to #NoFilter with Zack Peter. But yeah, what other questions, thoughts, feelings, reactions do you guys have? I was also on the Ringer Reality TV's Morally Corrupt podcast, so stay tuned for that. That'll be dropping later today as well. I chatted with those ladies, with my girls over at the Ringer at Spotify, so we chatted about it as well. Yeah, let me know. What are your reactions? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your vibes? The judge was very sassy. He was not putting up with any of Jen Shah's bullshit. Oof. What a time, what a time, what a time. I loved her glam outfit that she came rolling up in. She had hair freshly blown out. She was in camel tones, I guess is what we would describe this. It's a very Meghan Markle style. The camel tones. Hit the like button, everyone. Yes, thank you, artists. Has anyone seen any statements yet made by the other housewives? Have they made statements? Let's actually check that live. Let's see. Let's check. Let's see if Heather Gay has said anything. Very unlikely. I wonder if Heather Gay's blocked me. I think Heather Gay may have blocked me on Instagram. Did she? I got blocked, didn't I? Yeah. Wow. Heather Gay blocked me on Instagram. I mean, understandably, I definitely did not make her look good in that video that I posted from Watch What Happens Live. Wow. Heather Gay blocked me on Instagram. So, guys, check her. Meredith Marks did not block me. Is she still following me, though? Oh, Meredith Marks is still following. I like Meredith. I don't have an issue with Meredith necessarily. I have been a little disappointed that she has stuck by. It doesn't look like she's said anything. Let's see. Have you guys seen any of the statements? I'm sorry, I'm not from the US. Can you explain 6.5 years in federal prison plus 5 years supervised release? I mean, you serve 6.5 years in prison. She's likely going to be serving at the Bryan, Texas facility that Elizabeth Holmes is serving at. 6.5 years. 5 years is basically like probation. So after her 6.5 years, she'll have 5 years where she'll have to be following nothing from Heather. Yeah, I'm not surprised. They go straight to jail, or does she go later? She has to turn herself in by February 17th. So she has about 5-6 weeks until she has to actually serve her time. The 5 years is basically probation afterwards, but there is a lot, like, you do still have, it's a strict probation. It's a strict federal probation, essentially. Did she think that there would be a red carpet with the step and repeat welcome? I mean, I don't know what she thought. She definitely came glammed up. She had her security guards. They were both wearing matching, I think it was like blue or purple ties. So she was like, let's make sure they're coordinated and they look cute. Her camel outfit. She had her cheetah print little pumps on, heels on. She had her cheetah print scarf, a silk scarf, and then she had her cheetah print little clutch, which you can see photographed here. We have the clutch there. She was looking very fly. I'll give her that. She was definitely channeling her inner Jersey, probably wanting to channel Teresa Giudice. Heather is plugging her own book and no statement. Yeah, of course not. I'm late. Cute sweater, Zach. Thank you. It is my Harvard sweater. It says what? Like it's hard? Okay. Well, then that's all I've got for you guys. We broke down all of the sentencing. I mean, the craziest thing that came out this week as well was the alleged affair that Jen was having with the married man. The government released new evidence. I believe it was Wednesday. They submitted a police report. They submitted, which I briefly talked about with Emily D. Baker, but I realized we didn't actually cover it on the podcast. But there was a police report. There was a restraining order, and there was a statement from this woman who claims that she thought that Jen was sleeping with her husband. So she sent screenshots to Coach Shah. When Jen Shah found out, she confronted the woman, and then she drove all the way to Nevada and showed up at the woman's house. That's when the police were called. It got a little spicy with that altercation, but Jen Shah was like, I am not having this. I am not having this. Do you think she'll do another YouTube interview now to explain her side of things before she goes to prison? I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. But at this point, I'm so over the fucking YouTube interviews. They've told us nothing. She's consistently lied. Jen Shah is a known, proven liar. What is her truth? Her truth is that she's guilty and she conned elderly people. That is her truth. I don't give a fuck about another YouTube live stream that's going to go and tell us absolutely nothing but try to make her look like a good person. On behalf of all the gays that she claims to represent, we don't know her. Don't get me started. Now you're getting me fired up. I hope Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is canceled before she gets out. I don't foresee it going any longer. That was a great live, Zach. Thank you. Thank you, Zack Pack. Thank you, Aaron D. Did they already seize her real handbags and clothes? Yeah, all of that's already been seized. They have that. I believe that brought them just over 6.5 mil, and she still owes an additional 6.6 million in restitution that she will have to pay back on top of whatever the IRS is going to come after her for. So she has a big bill. A lot of prison time she's going to have to serve. It's not going to be pretty. It is not going to be pretty. Zach, can you explain the med thing? What med thing? Oh, she said, I believe you're referring to the fact that in court she said, I am now on meds. And so she is claiming that that is what helped her kind of see things clearly. I can see clearly now, the meds have hit. So she's basically claiming like mental health issues, which I'm sure she thinks will help her get a little time knocked off her prison sentence. Unlikely, but possibly. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Okay, no word from Justin Paperny. He's likely busy. I was pretty confident he was going to be busy today. So I'm not surprised that he's not available. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for you. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. More Real Housewives celebrity legal scandals will continue to be covered on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. The podcast is called #NoFilter with Zach Peter. So you can tune in, subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. I also do recaps for the Ringer Reality TV podcast. So if you like reality TV recaps, head on over to the Ringer Reality TV podcast on Spotify and subscribe. It is free. The podcast is free on all podcast platforms. Again, that's #NoFilter with Zach Peter. You have the YouTube here. Hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe on your way out. Hit the bell notification button if you want to make sure that the tea is hot in those notifications. I've also been breaking down a lot more Meghan and Harry stuff. We do a Zack Pack Weekly Unpack every Tuesday evening that goes live on Instagram and on YouTube. So stay tuned for that as well. We have covered a number of Housewives books, celeb books. We're now doing some documentaries. We covered the Meghan and Harry documentary. We pointed out all the lies in it. We covered the Casey Anthony documentary. I did a recap on the 10 wildest, craziest revelations from Prince Harry's new book, Spare. So that's up on the YouTube channel now. It's not on the podcast, but it's on the YouTube channel. But lots to come. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. You can give me a follow personally at Just Plain Zack all over the internet, or you can follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack on the Instagram. I hope you guys enjoyed today's live broadcast. We had Inner City Press. We had Emily D. Baker. We had quite a show today. Thank you guys for tuning in and supporting me. I do have a line of Housewives of, it's the unofficial Real Housewives wine, but it is my Housewives watching wine. It's what I like to drink while I'm watching Housewives. It's a fizzy, light, crisp white wine and a fizzy, light, crisp rosé, available at nofilterwine.com. So head over to nofilterwine.com and place your orders for these yummy, delicious reality TV inspired wines. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Maybe I'll go live on the Instagram. We'll do a little kiki chat afterwards. We'll see. All right, guys, I will chat with you soon. Bye.